So here we are, we're going head to head with the Cub Cadet. So on the left here we have a 2008 model, 19 horsepower, and as you can see it's the LT 1042 hydrostatic drive. And on the right hand side we've got the new one. This is the 2021. Notice the model, it's an LT42. They've just taken the 10 off. XT1. So let's have a look and we can compare. So just initially, pretty much the same setup. So if you have a look at the starting controls down here, this is the old version. So once you start it, you can engage the PTO down here. It's got a cruise control switch, it's got a foot brake, got the choke and the throttle here. Let's move over to the new version. So here we go, fairly similar setup. Starting, it's got the lock and the cruise control down here, and then they've got this IntelliPower dial to the left here. The left hand side is the foot brake and the right hand side is the forward and reverse. And here we have the height adjustments and then engaging and disengaging the blades, whereas this here has the PTO switch to engage and disengage the blades, and the foot brake and the forward and reverse pedals are all on the same side on the older version. And here's your height adjustment here. So a few things that I've noticed. First, changes in the 1042. It's got a Kohler 19 horsepower engine. It's been a great engine, served this mower well. And the battery is behind the front dashboard here. We move over to the rear here. The fuel tank is under the seat. So if you take the cap off, you can see it's got a fairly large nozzle for refueling. And on the back here you've got a fuel gauge. Let's move over to the newer version. First thing you notice, Cub Cadet's got their own branded engine here. It says 547cc, that's around about 19 horsepower. It's got a fuel tank now here instead of where the battery is. Got no idea where the fuel gauge is, so. And then the battery's under the seat. Now the first thing that I noticed here with the battery is if you have a look at how tight and how neat this fits in, that means that you've got to buy that same size battery, whereas with the older version you could have gone a little bit bigger. You can see how it's clipped in here. Let's go over to the older version. So lifting up the hood here, if you have a look, you can actually go a little bit taller, a little bit larger in battery if you need to. That's probably the major change that I've noticed. Alright, and of course the other thing to take note of is the cutting deck. Now here's the 1042 cutting deck. You can have a look at the thickness gauge of the metal here. So it's a fairly thick gauge. It's got front and rear guiding wheels, and if we have a look under, a bit of grass under here, but we'll have a look at the driving belt and the driving setup here. The thing that I've liked about this one, the deck's fairly easy to get off, so there's just one connection at the front here which you can unhook it, and then at the rear you've got these little hooks here that you can just pull out. They just come out, those little pins, and the deck drops out and you can slide it out. Alright, on the newer deck, just having a look, the first thing you notice is it's got a lot cheaper wheel at the front here and no wheels at the back. And I don't know, but the gauge of the deck here looks a little bit thinner, feels a little bit tinnier. And let's have a look at the driving setup here. You can see under here. Now, as far as removing and connecting the deck, it's got the one connection at the front still, and then at the back here it's got these pins. So I don't know if you can have a look at those. Alright, so that's the first thing that I've noticed. And looking at the drive belts and the way it's set up here, it's a lot different than the older version. There is actually a conversion you can get for these older versions, because the angle of the idle pulley, it's a bit hard to show you this without taking the deck out, but the angle of the idler pulley is just offset a little bit too much from here, so sometimes it jumps off. You can see the angle there, that belt actually goes up. So of course when you're in heavy grass sometimes that can jump off. Something else that I've noticed too is that this has got a front metal nudge bar on the front. That's pretty good for when you go up against trees. And here's the new one. Now, unless they haven't fitted it on here, you can get a version that does have a nudge bar on it, but this has just got a little metal cage that goes over the front down here. It's tin, and as you can see, it doesn't come out past the plastic, so I reckon that's the first thing that you're going to break when you go up against a tree. Something else that I've noticed, so if you look at the little hook down the back here, so this is the disengaging bar, so as soon as you pull it out you can move it pretty easily just with one hand. I'm just moving this with one hand here, whereas this version here, it's a little bit stiffer to move once you've got that pin out, but pretty much the same gauge thickness. In this has got a rolled edge on it, whereas this is just got the metal edging there. Apart from that, the only difference now is going to be performance. Now, this old one here has done a lot of work. I'm filming this in 2021. This is a 2008 model. It's served me well, and it's time to say goodbye. And I've upgraded to this newer version here. So that's the head-to-head between the two. Hopefully this will help you make it a little bit more of a decision when you're upgrading.